and welcome. I'm Ted Bradley, a Master Hypnotist. Welcome to today's Facebook Live, which is the secret to quitting smoking for life. I'm going to just talk about a couple of things first, and the reason why I do that is it takes a few minutes for people to kind of get on live, but a lot of views happen sort of post-live when people are watching either on my YouTube channel or they're watching it back on my Facebook. So, but at the same time, I always like just to give a few minutes for people to arrive. So those that are arriving, welcome. Those that are watching at home later, welcome. Here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to tell you what the secret to quitting smoking for life is. It's kind of anticlimactic and pretty simple, and most people don't understand it. But once they do, they're like, yeah, it's kind of makes sense and it's a little silly. But it's really important to understand. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to give, if you stay to the end, I'm going to give another tip like I did in my last Facebook Live about how to deal with cravings. This method works better for some because it's a little less, I don't know what the right word is, but it's not, when I say not as strong, what I mean is it's a little simpler to do, and you don't have to physically do anything in the last one to help with cravings with this very good practical tip. Okay, so that all being said, we're going to start. I'm Ted Bradley. I'm a hypnotist. I'm actually many other things. Spent, I don't know, good part of my 20s in university, like many people did. I went to the University of British Columbia for 7 years. But I've dedicated my life to quitting smoking and helping people quit smoking. I'm a former smoker myself, so I have personal experience. I lost 2 grandmothers to smoking. One before I ever met her. She died in Saskatchewan, Moose Jaw, from smoking before I was ever born. My dad was 19 when she passed. And then my other grandmother passed from smoking cigarettes. And the crazy thing is we didn't even know she smoked. We knew she smoked in the 70s. And then in the 80s and 90s, when everyone started to quit smoking because we figured out how bad it was, she just hid it. She hid it for decades. And when she eventually passed, we thought, well, she's a little young to be passing. We didn't really know why. And of course, they do autopsies, and they came back and they told us she passed from smoking. It was no idea. So I have I spent my life, I'm 50 now, spent my life dealing with smoking, helping people quit smoking, and looking at smoking from every angle. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what is the secret to quitting smoking. And there is a secret. It's very obvious, but so I'll give you the answer, but then we're going to go into a little bit of detail so that we really can understand it. Okay, so the secret to quitting smoking, essentially in its most simplest form, is that you're a whole person, right? You have one mind, only one mind. So what that means is when dealing with something like smoking, you can't deal with it as if it only affects a part of you. It affects all different parts of you. Okay, so doing one thing to quit smoking often isn't enough, right? And so what I've done in my practice, in my program, I've designed it to deal with all the different ways in which smoking affects it from I call it a holistic approach, which is kind of a popular term. So let's just get right into this and talk about what are the different parts of us that smoking actually affects, because it's not just one part. Okay, so really, smoking affects 3 different parts of who we are. So what do we mean when we say who we are? Okay, that is a question that is still unanswered. Okay, here's what we do know from science. We have a mind. Okay, that mind has different parts. It can be broken down in different ways. And when we break the mind down in different ways in neuroscience, all we're really doing is dividing it up so that we can explain it. It has explanatory power, but you only have one mind. Okay, you'll notice that you won't hear me or most neuroscientists talk about your unconscious mind. It's because there's no scientific evidence at all that an unconscious mind exists. We can't measure it. I cannot point at a part of your brain and say, there's your unconscious mind. Okay, we think it exists, we think it's a real thing, but we don't understand it, we can't measure it. We do know that we have conscious thoughts and we have unconscious thoughts, and we can measure that. We can measure them with an MFRI machine, and we can measure the neurological activity, okay, in our brain, and where that happens. When we have a conscious thought, okay, like our thinking thing, the internal dialogue we hear in our head, that's a conscious thought. We can see it. We can measure it, okay? When we have an unconscious thought, okay, that is a thought our brain has that might not be at the conscious level, we can see that too. We can measure it, and we can see what part of the brain it happens in. So we have a really, really good understanding of that. Even though we do have conscious and unconscious thoughts, you still have one mind. You only have one mind. That's it. Okay? You don't have two minds. You don't have a conscious mind and unconscious mind. No. You have conscious thoughts and unconscious thoughts in your one mind. Okay, so we have a mind. Our mind not only has thoughts, but it's biochemistry at its core, right? We are, in a sense, animals. We are living biological sacs of mostly water, and our body operates on our neurological system. So that's basically electrical at its core. Now, neurons are real things. So, for example, if you tickle your toe, a neuron goes from your foot all the way up to our brain. And our brain does wonderful things. So I'll give you an example of some of the things our brain does to sort of help us. So, for example, if I take my finger and I touch it to my nose, okay, a neuron goes from the tip of my finger all the way down my arm and up to my brain. A neuron goes from the tip of my nose into my brain to say that it felt it. Now, what happens is the neuron from my nose actually arrives before the neuron from my finger. To us, this feels like it's the same time. So what's happening? What's happening is our brain is adjusting for these differences and telling our conscious mind, our unconscious mind is telling our conscious mind, hey, this happened at the same time. The reason why that happens is it helps us move throughout the world physically more efficiently. So what's the point? The point is we have a mind and our body operates on an electrical system. And that's going to become very important when we get to the second part of what it means to quit smoking and how the secret to quitting smoking. The first part is you have one mind, okay, a conscious and an unconscious mind. The conscious and the unconscious mind both deal with smoking separately. So that's 1, 2, conscious mind, unconscious mind, okay? So that's 1 and 2. The third part of who we are as a whole person is our physical body, okay? So we have conscious thoughts, we have unconscious thoughts, and we have a physical electrical body, okay? So let's talk about, now that we sort of have just a basic understanding of our physiology, conscious thoughts, unconscious thoughts, physical neurological body, let's talk about now the different models and methods for quitting smoking and what parts do they affect. Okay, so the one that most people are sort of familiar with are what we call nicotine replacement therapies. Okay, there's tons of them. Okay, they have oodles of money. They're owned by Procter and Gamble, pharmaceutical companies. Big Tobacco owns some of them. Nicotine. Okay, they're huge. They spend billions on advertising every year. Nicotine replacement. So what nicotine replacement therapy is, and it does work. Okay, what it is it's basically you take nicotine and it goes on the assumption of a physical chemical dependency in your brain. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. So what the idea is that you are physically addicted to the nicotine, which is a stimulant in your brain, stimulates your pleasure sensories in your mind, okay? And so the way that you get off the dependence of it is you just take a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less and a little less till you have none. That's essentially the mall of the patch, okay? Now, there's been tons and tons of efficacy studies done in nicotine replacement therapies. We know they do work. They work in the teens, okay? What does that mean? Well, what that means is after 6 months, for example, the patch, depending upon the studies, around 14%. Some studies show 16, some show 12. But what we're really looking for in science is we're not looking for a single study. We're looking for like 100 studies, and we put them all together, and then we evaluate all the studies and say, where does this kind of wash out in the wash? What's the average? So it tends to be in the low teens, nicotine replacement therapies, okay? So what that means is you can use a nicotine replacement therapy to weed yourself down off, and 6 months later, they will call you up on the phone and you won't be smoking, okay? That's what we call an efficacy study, or another way of saying success rate, okay? Now, that doesn't mean those people won't start smoking in a year, but after 6 months, it's in the teens, okay? Placebo. Placebo is we give you a sugar pill and we tell you it's a miracle drug, okay? Placebo is around 12%. In some studies, it says as low as 8 and it's as high as 14, but it's around 12. So it's a little bit less than the nicotine replacement therapies. So one of the questions people ask, and there's no scientific evidence for this, but is the nicotine replacement therapy really just placebo with a little bump? Don't know. There's no scientific consensus on whether it's really just placebo or if it really is getting down the nicotine. Okay, so that's one way we deal with nicotine, and dealing with that way of quitting smoking using nicotine replacement is really about dealing with the physiological chemical in our brain of nicotine, okay, which stimulates our pleasure center. So when it's no longer being stimulated like a drug, we want it to be stimulated, so we reach for the cigarette. That's a physical dependency. That's addiction. That's the technical definition of addiction. So nicotine replacement's job is to deal with physical addiction, okay? Here's the thing. Our brain chemistry and our addiction to cigarettes, because it stimulates our pleasure sensor in our brain, is one part of us. One. We are much more than that, and our relationship to smoking is way more than that, okay? Here's the catch. The catch is nicotine only stays in your system for 3 days, 72 hours. After 72 hours, it's gone. There is no more any physical addiction, okay? If all it was a physical addiction in your brain and nicotine replacement therapy was all that great, almost everybody would be able to quit. It's very close to placebo. It has one of the lowest efficacy rates and success rates in quitting smoking. It's that low. Okay. So does it work? Yes. Can you do it? Yes. If you do it and you're successful at it, awesome. That is so awesome. When anyone ever tells you, hey, I did the patch and I quit, congratulate them. That's great. Okay. But this is just good information to understand. Okay. So that's number one. Okay, number two, okay, is our unconscious part of our mind. The unconscious part of our mind has nothing to do, nor when we have unconscious thoughts, it does not stimulate the same part of the mind as the pleasure sensor, okay, that nicotine stimulates. It's a different part of the brain. So in our unconscious mind, okay, here's how that works, okay. In our unconscious mind, essentially, and I don't have time to go into it in this video because I don't like these to go on too long, but essentially what happens is almost everyone who starts smoking starts before the age of 27, okay? And what usually happens is people start on 14, 15, 16, and they start smoking. And if you remember my last video, smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good. So essentially what happens is, okay, at a very young age, before our critical faculties developed, and I'm not going to go into critical faculty this time, but what happens is we go smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good. And we do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We do it when we're 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Like almost a decade for most people, our critical faculty develops and locks in our unconscious mind. And what it locks in there is it locks in habit. Habit is one of the things that exists in our unconscious mind. Anything that we do over and over and over again. Okay, our conscious mind is not that strong. It can only do 3 to 5 things at one time. If our conscious mind had to run habit, how to walk, how to breathe, how to run our circulatory system, how to make our heart beat, we'd fall down and die, right? That's what our unconscious mind does. That's the job of the unconscious mind, habit. So what happens is when we go smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good, smoke, we just smoke, 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 smoke every day. We put our hand to our mouth. okay, what we do is we hypnotize ourselves. We lock into our unconscious mind, smoke feel good. So guess what happens when the nicotine's gone and we're not stimulating the pleasure sense anymore and it's past 3 days, okay? It's not an addiction. What's happening is your unconscious mind, you get a trigger. You get in a fight at work. You had a bad day. Somebody yells at you. Somebody honks at you. Somebody cuts you off. It doesn't matter. You get a trigger. Your unconscious, the physical addiction's gone. You don't need the nicotine replacement therapy, okay, anymore. It's 3 days. What happens is your unconscious mind goes, I got to feel good. Guess what? You've locked in there. Smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good, smoke. You've hypnotized yourself, okay? So when it comes to the unconscious mind, nicotine replacement therapy, it doesn't work, okay? It works in the first 3 days to weed yourself off, eventually helps you with that the pleasure stimulant part of your brain, for sure. But you get outside 72 hours of having no nicotine, nicotine replacement doesn't, if you're still having nicotine, you're still addicted. So let me explain this just so it's really clear. If you are still taking nicotine, even if it's less, you're still addicted and you're not past those 3 days yet. Okay? You have to be no nicotine for 3 days, and then the physical addiction's gone, and anything that's left is right here. Okay? So that's our unconscious mind. We hypnotize ourselves into smoking. Smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good. We get a trigger. We want to feel good. It's why you can watch a parent die from emphysema. You can go downstairs. You can walk out the front of the hospital and you can light up a cigarette. Your conscious mind goes, I don't want to smoke. It's bad for me. It could kill me. Your unconscious mind goes, I just watched a parent die and I want to feel good. Guess what happens? You light up, okay? The problem with nicotine replacement therapy is it just deals with the one. It's not dealing with your unconscious mind. So if all people do is nicotine replacement, you're only dealing with one way that nicotine and smoking deals with who you are as a whole person, okay? You're only attacking it from one angle. So why do you think nicotine replacement therapies or effectiveness rate is in the teens? Because it's only dealing with one thing, right? You're a whole person. You are a whole person, okay? There's multiple facets to you. We're complex. We're very complex, okay? So that's the physical addiction, your unconscious mind, and then here's the third part. And this is the part that most people don't really understand very well, okay? The third part is essentially identity. Okay, we create identities all the time. We know this from psychiatry, okay? So psychiatry has in its thing called parts therapy, okay? So what's parts therapy? Parts therapy has some history with neuroscience. What parts therapy is, the idea is that we create different parts to ourselves, right? We create different identities. So the happy me, the angry me, the sad me, and then they're almost like suits or dresses that we put on and we wear, okay, when we're in a particular mood, okay? So in psychiatry, they'll often deal with clients, is what they call them. They'll deal with particular parts of them, okay? So they call that parts therapy. So the therapy is really only for the part of that person's psyche that's causing issues, okay? So that's parts therapy. What does that have to do with smoking? Well, here's what it has to do with smoking. Here's the interesting thing from neuroscience, is that we know from neuroscience that when people engage different parts of their personality, when they're happy, when they're sad, what happens is our neurological system, which is particularly in the brain where most neurological functioning happens here. This is what neuroscience studies, okay? The second most place with the most neurological information in our body is actually, it's our heart, okay? So we run on this neurological system. So when we create an identity like our angry self, our neurological system will actually mimic that state. What it means is it will align itself electrically with that mental state. Okay, that's why we say you can cut the tension in the room with a knife. You sit beside somebody that's angry, I mean, you can feel it. You might not even know them. You're just sitting on a subway and you just know, man, this person is not happy. Okay, we can measure an electrical field up to 3.5 feet outside of somebody's body. Okay, so if you're within 3.5 feet of another person, you can pick up and sense their way that they are aligning their identity. So what happens in our mind is when we have a mental state, our neurological system aligns its way. This becomes pronounced in certain states. So anger, it's one of the most pronounced ones, okay? The other way that these electrical states get pronounced, and what do I mean by pronounced? It means is if you got one person sitting on your right that's angry, you got somebody who's in a state of happiness on your other side, you're more likely to sense the angry person, because what happens is their neurological system really aligned itself very strongly, okay, in that state, okay? So what happens is whenever we perceive anything as a problem, okay, our neurological system will align itself in a very strong way. So if you're just a smoker and you have oh, I'm a smoker, but you're not to that point yet where you want to quit or you don't like it, you don't perceive it as a problem, okay, it doesn't create as strong as an electrical state in your physiology. If you are a smoker and you perceive smoking as a problem, guess what happens? It aligns your neurological system in a much stronger way because you perceive it as a problem, okay? That's what actually happens according to neuroscience, okay? So we create identities, okay? So part of my process is dealing with that identity. So here you are, you're a smoker, you're trying to quit. If you're only doing the patch and the nicotine, you're not dealing with how your body aligns itself in an energetic state, how you create an identity as a smoker, and you're not dealing with your unconscious mind that's created a habit, okay? That's why all of these different methods only have certain success rates, okay? So they are basically quitting smoking via nicotine replacement therapy is in the low teens. The next one is actually the drug called Champex, okay? It's at least 22, okay? And it deals with the cravings. So it gets you, once you're off 72 hours, it keeps the cravings away to hopefully long enough that you can form a habit. It has some people, not all people, have terrible side effects, very bad, vivid nightmares. You talk to anyone who's ever been on it that's had the side effects, it's crazy. Some people have none. It really comes down to your body chemistry. But what it does help you with the cravings, okay? But it has about 22% success rate. Hypnotherapy has about a 60% success rate. Some studies have as low as 40, some as high as 70, but it kind of averages out over all the studies in around the high 50s, low 60s. But still, that's only 6 and 10. Okay, so that's not foolproof either. But again, because hypnotherapy is only dealing with your unconscious mind, right? It's not dealing with the other parts, because there's other parts like your identity. So let's go back to the identity part now. Okay, so here we are. We're a smoker. We create an identity as a smoker. Okay, so here's what happens. Here's the problem when you create an identity: is you have to clear it from your system energetically. It is very difficult to do, and what happens is we keep ourselves stuck in it. And here's how we do it. You know what we do? We quit smoking and we call ourselves a non-smoker. Okay, non-smoker has smoker built into it. Okay, it's a self-created identity. So let me give you an example. We're defining ourselves as a smoker by something that we're not doing anymore. Okay, it sounds normal. It's crazy. Think about it for a second. Okay, do you believe in the tooth fairy? Do you believe in the tooth fairy? No, you don't. Okay, do you call yourself a non-tooth fairyist? Why not? Do you believe in Santa Claus? No, you don't. Are you a non-Santa Clausist? Why not? So when we quit smoking, okay, and we call ourselves a non-smoker, we're building in self-defeat into making sure that we still have this identity of a smoker, okay? So you cannot call yourself a non-smoker. In a few minutes, when we get to the end here of today, I'll explain what you can do to counteract that, okay? So what's the secret to quitting smoking? The secret to quitting smoking is don't do one model, right? So when I develop my program, okay, whatever program you choose, whether it's mine or somebody else's, look for a program that addresses all these parts of you: your conscious mind, your unconscious mind, and how we create an identity, okay? Because if you deal with the conscious mind and you get through the first 3 days, and you deal with the unconscious mind, okay, and so that you don't have all of those, you're not working against your unconscious mind after 3 days. Your unconscious mind is working with you, and you deal with the identity. You've now attacked the problem of smoking from basically all aspects of you as a human being, right? So the secret to quitting smoking is to attack from all 3 angles. Your conscious mind, dealing with the first 72 hours of getting through the nicotine leaving your system. 2, your unconscious mind, where you've created smoking as a habit. Smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good. 3, the identity that you've created as a smoker by stop calling yourself a non-smoker. That is the secret to quitting smoking for life. Realize you are a human being with one mind, and you're a whole person. Okay? You are a whole person. And 2, when you pass the 72 hours, okay, don't call yourself a non-smoker. Okay, here's what you do. All you need to do is, after 72 hours, okay, and not a craving. We get, often what we first get before we get cravings are what we call an echo. Okay, so let me explain to you what that echo is. And this is a really great practical tip that you can do, okay? So you've quit smoking, okay? 72 hours goes by, okay? And I train everyone that does my program to do this, okay? Some people, most people, when they do my program, about a third of them, they have nothing. They have no cravings, no nothing, zero. It's like they never smoked a day in their life. Some people experience what we call an echo. So what that means is, for example, say you were somebody who every time you got in your car, you smoked, okay? What happens is, when you're finished with my program, about a third of people, they'll get in their car, they'll drive for 10 minutes, and then they'll have the thought, oh, I'm usually smoking. Isn't that weird? Okay? That's an echo. That's not a big deal. I'm going to tell you in 1 second what to do, what I tell people who go through my program, what to do if that happens. The second thing that happens is, some people will get, about another third will get what we call an echo and a pull. So some people may say that, call it a craving. If it's after 72 hours, it's not a craving. It's in your unconscious mind. There's no nicotine in your system anymore. There's no physical addiction. There's nothing trying to stimulate the pleasure sense in your brain. It's all gone, okay? It's a thought that you're having a craving. And then what happens is, with any thought, we give it power. It steamrolls, okay? Here's how you take all the wind out of the sails, okay? You smile. Even if it's not a real smile, smile. The reason why you smile is your body does not know a real smile from a fake smile, and your brain will release dopamine. Guess what that does? Stimulates the pleasure sensor in your brain, okay? And so you're stimulating the pleasure sensor instead of doing this by just doing this. It is the easiest way, other than chemicals like sugar, believe it or not, to stimulate that part of your brain, is just simply smiling. So you get an echo, or you get an echo when you think you're having a pull. Stop yourself, take a deep breath, smile, and here's what you say. You say, I don't smoke. Okay? You don't say, I'm a non-smoker. Why? Because saying that I'm a non-smoker is a self-constructed identity. Okay? You just don't smoke anymore, right? You're not a non-Santa Clausist. You're not a non-tooth fairyist. Okay? You don't define yourself by what you're not, right? You just don't smoke. So you're no longer reinforcing in your brain smoking, that you're a smoker. You're not creating that identity anymore. You are starting to change your system neurologically by changing how you think, okay? How we think and how we feel changes our system neurologically and our identities. So here's what you do. You've quit smoking. You're past 72 hours. Okay, you get a pull, or right? You get triggered in a pull. You have thought about a cigarette. You take a deep breath. You smile. Stimulates that part of your brain that nicotine used to stimulate, and you say, I don't smoke. That will help shift your identity as a smoker and deal with that part of you. Okay? So that's the secret to quitting smoking. Okay? It's pretty self-evident, and it's not particularly, mind-shattering, right? But most people, what happens is we get stuck in thinking because we listen to marketing, right? right? And the nicotine replacement people, man, they market like crazy. They spend billions to make you think, hey, you're trying to get off nicotine? Have more nicotine, right? I mean, the vape people have made a massive industry out of this. Buy this vape and turn it down. Do you think they advertise turning the vape down? No, they advertise flavors, right? And how cool it is, right? They want you to turn the nicotine up. Why do you think tobacco companies invest in all the vaping companies, right? Because it keeps you smoking. Vaping. My practice 5 years ago had like no vapors. It's a full 25% of my practice in 5 years are vapors. That stuff is evil. It will not help you quit one iota. It keeps the addiction going because you hand them off, feel good, hand them off, feel good. So it keeps you stuck on your unconscious mind, keeps you stuck consciously because nobody turns it down. You don't turn it down, right? That's why people dread the patch, because it's kind of like forced on you because each patch has less and less nicotine in it. But the reason why the pharmaceuticals and the tobacco companies invest in Nicoderm and those companies is because the longer they keep you on nicotine, the more likely you are to stay. Right? So my advice is you just got to stop. You got to get through the first 3 days. You got to deal with your conscious mind, which is essentially your relationship to smoking and the fact that you're addicted, because nicotine's addictive. You're addicted to cigarettes, right? You got to deal with your unconscious mind, which is where you've created a habit of smoke, feel good, smoke, feel good, smoke, good, smoke, feel good. And you have to start to shift your identity that you create as a smoker. You're not a smoker anymore. You're not a non-smoker. You just don't smoke. Okay? That's the secret to quitting smoking for life. Deal with all of those parts because you're a whole person with one mind. And you will kick that habit, its ass right out. Okay? So, and the last thing is my tip, which is take a deep breath, smile, stimulate the dopamine part of your brain for reward, and say, I don't smoke. Start to change your identity. That will help. If you do that along with the one from the previous video about cravings, that will help you tons. The only thing that's really hard to do is to change your unconscious mind, which is what's so great about hypnosis. But you can do it yourself, right? You can learn self-hypnosis. People do it all the time, okay? I'm going to do very shortly, within the next week or two, a thing on self-hypnosis and what is hypnosis and how it works and how it's totally natural. And I'll just give you one little story so you've got something to look forward to, okay? Hypnosis, everybody does it. You do it on average 7 times a day, okay? All hypnosis is self-hypnosis, eventually. Okay, so I'll give you one example. Have you ever been driving home? Okay, you're driving home, you're like, your mind gets focused on something. It's like, something at work, something's bothering you, and you've driven home this way 1,000 times, and you're driving home. You get in your driveway, and you're like, I don't even remember driving home. I don't even know how I got here. You were in a hypnotic trance. You hypnotize yourself. That's all that is. You let your unconscious mind come forward and drive you home while your conscious mind focused on something else. That's a hypnotic trance. You do it all the time. If you pray, if you meditate, when you read a good book, when you veg out on TV, watch a kid, watch a 7-year-old watch TV. You can say to them, come clean your room, come clean. They're in a hypnotic trance in the TV. You know they hear you, and they do hear you. Their conscious mind hears you, but they're stuck in a hypnotic trance. You got to go wake them up. What do? You walk over and you go, hey, snap out of it. Guess what hypnotists do? That's what they do. Okay, that's what happens with smoking in our unconscious mind, and why hypnosis, that's the part that hypnosis is good for. It's for helping with that part of it, the unconscious urge and desire to smoke. Okay, so just recap really quickly, because this has been a fairly long one again. So the secret to quitting smoking is to attack it from all aspects of you as a person, your conscious mind, your unconscious mind, and how we create identities. Just doing nicotine replacement probably isn't going to cut it. If it works, do it and be happy. Okay, and we'll celebrate you. That's so great that people quit. 14% of people quit for 6 months on nicotine replacement therapy. Okay, that's awesome. Attack it from all angles. Your conscious mind, getting spending that 72 hours and getting off the nicotine physically, dealing with your unconscious mind, in dealing with identity, which I've given you a tip for. Okay, I see some people have some questions. Yes, Tanya, I will send you my videos on WhatsApp, no problem. If anyone else has questions, what you can do is go to my Facebook page. You can DM me, just send me a direct message. I answer all questions. You can post questions on any of the videos underneath. Please, please help. Let's get this message out to get people to quit smoking. Even if people don't do my program, they just quit it based on the information I'm giving. It makes my day. I love getting emails and messages from people that say, hey, I didn't do your program, but you know what? I watched reviews and I quit. That is awesome, and I love that. Okay? So post your comments below, share the video, like the video. It helps get the message out to get people to quit smoking. Thank everyone for coming and listening. For all those of you that are watching, not the live broadcast, but after the fact, have an amazing coming up week. Bless you all, and may you all quit smoking. Thank you so much.